Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're watching this video, but welcome to another video. And we are going to go down the ultimate rabbit hole with this, and we're looking at suppressors in airsoft. And to the venture of this build series, if you could call it that, or research series on the channel, firstly, before we get to that and why I'm doing it, we're going to talk about suppressors in airsoft. So if you're new to airsoft, you've been doing it for a long time, suppressors is one of the most debated topics, I think, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. So what is a suppressor? Now, a suppressor would be something that you would fit to a real firearm. These are all airsoft replicas, toys, whatever you want to call them. They're not real. You'd put it on a real firearm to reduce not only the muzzle flash, but the sound and the report that comes out of the end. Now, I'm not a gun tuber. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even going to try and approach the subject of trying to go against the pros and the cons and this, that, and the other. If you're like me, you're an airsofter. Maybe you're a video gamer as well, like myself. We have been brought up around gun culture, would you say it? But video games, movies, suppressors are cool. You see them screwing them onto a pistol or a rifle, and it makes it super quiet. Now, in reality, that's not the case. Yes, it will make what you put on, the rifle, let's say you took a suppressor, you put it on there, it will reduce the sound, but it doesn't always make it hearing safe. In airsoft, however, we're LARPing. We're having a good time on the field. And there's many people out there that will say, they do absolutely nothing. Others say, they're good for putting trace units in. And then others say, yes, they're absolutely phenomenal. And I am very much in that third category. But it's not as simple as that. If you're putting a suppressor on an AEG, sometimes it can work. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that because my Ares M45 X-Class is an AEG. It has a MOSFET, so the gearbox turns over pretty fast. The way these M45 X-Classes work, and I've got many various videos on the channel. If you want to know more about this, just go and search on the channel videos for M45, is they over volume and they've got a short barrel. What that means is as the round leaves the barrel, you get this massive crack of air and they're really loud, much like the G&G Firehawks. Now, if you take something like a Silverback Mark 23 suppressor, because these are threaded to 16mm clockwise, and you put it on this rifle, the suppressor makes this AEG extremely quiet compared to when you're not firing it, and that's just because of all the stuff that's going on. You're over voluming air to a short in a barrel, you're getting a crack out the end, you put this on, it gets rid of the crack, and it reduces the sound of the rifle, a hell of a lot. Now, there's probably many people out there that will disagree with me. I've been doing it a long time. I've been building those M45s for a long time. And those that have followed in the footsteps of what I've done with mine all say the same thing. It makes a hell of a lot of difference. Now, that's not the case for every electric gun. The main part of the noise comes from the gearbox behind the metal receiver or plastic receiver, depending on what gun you've got. Now, spring rifles, so bolt action rifles, suppressors can work very, very well. The TMG spec, for example, comes out the box with a suppressor, is extremely quiet. I don't run a bolt action rifle spring powered without a suppressor on. Now, this one here is a Silverback Mark 23 suppressor that you can see has been machined to fit my TAC 41. That's what I fit on there. This monstrosity here is actually a bit of a rare piece that come on the ASG Ashbury bolt action rifle, and years and years and years ago I managed to get one of these. You can see in this one, this is going back some years now because I haven't used the rifle for a hell of a long time. I was actually incorporating rubber washers as well as foam, and the striker that this goes on, because you couldn't buy these casings. You could buy the casings on their own, but they wouldn't fit onto anything. You had to have the flash hider. The flash hider only came on the Ashbury. I managed to get one of these with a flash hider, and it goes on my striker. And bolt action rifles, spring rifles, HPA converted bolt action rifles, gas bolt action rifles, suppressors work phenomenally well. but you do have to take into consideration that a suppressor is generally quite long. You put a suppressor on it, it's going to make the gun or the rifle even longer. So that's AGs and bolt actions out the way. The next one would be gas blowbacks. Now, a suppressor on a gas blowback gun, whether it be a pistol or a rifle, categorically right now does absolutely nothing, because it's a gas blowback. The whole reason behind it is you're getting the bolt or the slide come back to function and mimic a real gun, even though it's not. You know, I'm trying to be kind to the YouTube algorithm on this, because I dare say it's going to get demonetized very fast. Most of the sound comes from the action. Now, you might say, well, a lot of your gas blowbacks, you've got suppressors on. Now, there's two reasons for this. Well, there's more than two reasons for it. So number one, it looks really cool. So the SIG Spear, for instance, has the SIG suppressor on it that came from Toxicant. It looks very cool. It suits the rifle. I have another SIG suppressor here, which goes on my MPX. It looks very cool. These at the moment aren't filled with anything. So it looks cool. The second point is it doesn't actually hurt. There's people that have got onto, I had quite an interesting comment the other day basically saying that with a suppressor I could be trying to fool the chrono. Now, that's not the case usually. I think what he was trying to get at is you could put a suppressor on a gun, you could chrono it, you take the suppressor off and you're slightly more overpowered compared to what you chronoed at. Now, it would be so marginal. But the third reason is, in my opinion, having that little bit of a buffer before the round comes through and, you know, hits atmosphere. So it's not, you know, the split second that it's in a chamber like this. The only thing I can kind of quantify it as is it's kind of a buffer, like a stabilization buffer. So the round comes through, the expanding gas kind of gets caught up in the suppressor, even though it doesn't do anything with the noise, and then you get a bit more of a stable release of a BB coming through the end of the suppressor. Now, it is probably so marginal that you wouldn't be able to quantify it. And if you are, even though these go on my gas blowback rifles and they're empty, if you have ever fit an empty suppressor onto something, you'll know it gives it a very weird sound. So I'll be putting foam in them just because why not? And that is gas blowbacks. Now, with gas guns, you've also got a category of non-blowback guns. Most famously known is the TM Mark 23. Now, if you put a foam-filled suppressor on a gas non-blowback pistol or rifle or whatever like that, it works a hell of a lot. It works much like, you know, the Springs or, you know, HPA, which I'm going to get onto in just a moment. So it does work. It works very well, and that's why many companies over the years, Silverback and a few others, have made suppressors for the TM Mark 23 and its clones. You've also got the Bodyguards, the 380s, the LCP 1 and 2. There's many non-blowback pistols that have come to market since, and, you know, same kind of principle. It's a little bit more difficult with CO2 just because CO2 is so punchy, but a gas non-blowback pistol, a suppressor will work very well. Now, this comes onto my last category, which is HPA. Now, there is no other platform that benefits from a suppressor more than HPA. You've got no gearbox, you've got no moving bolt or slide. They're very, very quiet already. Now, you will get a crack of air out the end of the barrel, which is why suppressors work very well on HPA. Now, if you set your dwell and everything like that perfectly, you've got your PSI set, you got your dwell set, everything's tuned in, you put a suppressor on it, they work even better. So HPA, in my opinion, is probably one of the platforms that mostly benefits from a suppressor. Now, with me getting that all out the way, many of you, and I'm only going to do this because I'm going to get flooded in the comments, people going, well, what's that one and what's that one in the video? I'm just going to get it out the way now. This is a Q suppressor, or I think it was called the Trash Panda suppressor. Yeah, Trash Panda. I think this was from CNC Tac. I think I bought it from either WGC or JK Army. We've got a Hex, Sniper Mechanics Hex, the small one. Sniper Mechanics Hex, the long one. These are the originals. We've got the Sniper Mechanics Hex XL in both colours. We have a CGS style suppressor here. I can't remember the brand on this one, boys and girls. I had them, I think, off WGC. There's actually two here. There's one sort of silvery tannish colour, and then there's a black one here as well, which has a suppressor cover on it, which is off my Rattler. Mark 23 suppressor. This one comes on I think an Airsoft Artisan kit for the MCX, and a customer wanted the rail but they didn't want the suppressor, so I said I'd keep the suppressor, and that went on my MPX. That is the Toxicant SIG suppressor for the Toxicant MCX Spear and various MCX series. They do a flash hider for it. That's why it's not going to go onto directly onto a rifle. It's going to go onto the flash hider that sits on the rifle here. This is an ASG Ashbury bolt action suppressor. This is probably more than a decade old now. These are some cheaper Chinese suppressors. They usually come like this. They have a little adapter. I've used many of these over the years. Very simplistic cylindrical suppressor, as you'd see in many shops. The difference with these is they have an awesome looking muzzle brake design on the end, and I'm going to be using some of these with the upcoming HPA builds for Empire Airsoft. The final one here is the same one. It was originally that length, but it's been machined down for a smaller fit, and again this might go on one of the HPA builds I'm doing for Empire. So there's a selection of suppressors. This isn't even all of the suppressors I have. If I reach down below me here, we've got even more in this little box from your bog standard twin thread style suppressors. That one's a bit more original, like just a simple suppressor. It's got 14 counter and 14 counterclockwise on opposite ends. We also have these style suppressors, which, you know, they're meant for air rifles, and they just have little metal baffles. You probably have seen this many times before if you watch any type of gun tubers on YouTube. And that goes together like so. Very thin. Not really useful for airsoft applications. And then we have the monocore suppressors, as you'll see here, which is literally using the same sort of design as firearm companies in the US when they make their suppressors. These are a cheeky little tidbit that you can buy off AliExpress if you know where to look. They're called like oil filters or something like that, and they come capped. None of these have been modified. I do have a few of them. Again, it brings me on to my next point, that I have been experimenting, researching, developing, testing, tuning suppressors for airsoft for the past 10-15 years. It's been a long time. I've been messing with them, all kinds of different applications, and it's time for me to take all that knowledge, research, data, tuning, testing, experience, and use it in this upcoming series. So what am I doing in this series? This is the venture to try and make or design or discover the most effective suppressor for airsoft that I can. And this is all going to start with two of these suppressors on the bench. So let me clear the bench, and then we'll talk about what we're getting into in just a moment. So the next step of my suppressor journey was I was looking for manufacturers, creators, designers, people that could help me on my next part of the venture. And that was when a couple of years ago, I started the Jaeger Precision custom suppressor foam service on the website. And there is a series of internal suppressor foam that you could buy from me under the brand Lakibu. And if anyone can guess what Lakibu stands for, put it down in the comments below, and the winner will get a present off me sent in the post. So I started the Lakibu suppressor foam range for airsoft, and it was very successful, and what should I say, it was like a victim of its own success. So I was producing so much suppressor foam baffles in so many different sizes to so many different specifications because everybody wanted something different, that I ended up getting too busy with it, and it was costing me more time than what it was bringing in to sort of put back into doing even more with Jaeger Precision at the time. And then I got even further busy with obviously making parts and building custom rifles for people, and it just I didn't have the time to get back into it. Now, when we started building the Strike Industries MTW, and I was messing around with these very, very good suppressors from Sniper Mechanics, it's almost like it relit that fire and that sort of like obsession and passion of me going down the rabbit hole with this stuff. So I managed to get my machine back up and running. It's running new hardware, new software, new computer, and it's been a while just to try and get it back calibrated and get it good to go. And while I was doing that, because I'm going to be having to make certain things for my own personal projects, I thought, it would be nice to get that service back up and running, but maybe do it in a smarter way, shall we say. So you can buy something off the shelf that's already made and it fits a certain brand or a certain size of suppressor. So that's what started me on this next stage. And these are Sniper Mechanics Hex XL suppressors, and this is what I'm going to be using to sort of take the next part of development further. And this will lead to the subsequent videos that follow in its footsteps. So this bronze Sniper Mechanics XL hex suppressor is as it comes out the box. Now, the only thing I had to do when I was messing with these suppressors, and again, it probably goes back to them having to assemble, because they're very popular, assemble them so quickly. All that I found was that the baffles, when I opened it up, like all the baffles were like sort of squished in like that. So they're all like, they're not quite centered. And if you're ever doing like foam baffles like this, the best, you need like what I call a tamp, is what I sort of sort of word to describe that thing they use in coffee. So a tamp. So all I did was I took all the baffles out and I put them in one by one. I used something that's very close to the diameter of the suppressor, and each time I push one in, I'm using this MP5 suppressor here, I'm just letting it with its own weight drop to the bottom. And what it did was it makes sure that these baffles go in perfectly straight and flat. And that's all I did out the box. I took them out, put them back in, and this suppressor is very good. For an out the box as it comes suppressor, he's done a very, very good job with this. So I just want to get that out there. But could it be made better? So I've took the internal size, diameter and length of the internal structure of the Hex XL. And you might have seen a thing that went up on Instagram the other day, but we're starting to play around with foam baffles again. Now, there's going to be a series of videos, like I said, and I'm sorry if this video is going on longer than possible. I do want to try and cover all bases. So I've got the kind of all the main information that I think people don't find on the internet at the start, and then we're going to be using this. So this is going to be my control test. This is an out-the-box Hex XL suppressor, and then this one we're going to use to see if we can improve upon it. It might just be a case of we do all this and Sniper Mechanic really has just nailed it and we can't improve on it. So I've bought various different decibel meters, sound testing equipment, materials. Now, I've been researching materials for suppressor internals for Airsoft for such a long time, like years and years and years. And I've come up with three. So there is material A, material R, and material R and material Z. So that's all I'm going to refer to them as, because so often I put information out and people use my experience, research and data to then just go and run with it and do their own thing. So I'm not going to be mentioning anything as to where I get the material from, what the material's made of, manufacturers, sizing, specification. I'm not going to be discussing all that to the degree that I can't say anything, and we're going to be getting down to it. So the first video, which will follow after this, is we're testing materials, and my thinking behind it is we set up baffles in a certain specification for the Hex XL. We get readings for this at different distances, and then we get the same readings for this one with the different materials in set up in the exact same way. And what that's going to do for us is it's going to tell us which material performs the best at different distances from the muzzle. I'm going to be doing this all indoors, just because, you know, you're going to get even better results outdoors, but it needs to be controlled, and there's various things that could set off the testing equipment that I will be using to record my results. So we'll have material A, material R, material Z, which material works in the best way in that format. Once we've got an answer and we're like, categorically this material works better, then what we'll start to do is we'll go, right, we've got the material that works the best. Now, what design and internal structure and shape works the best with that material? So that's what we're going down. I've gone far too long with this video. I hope most of you haven't got bored. I hope you've learned something or took something away from it, but don't worry, there's going to be a lot more coming. Not sure how I'm going to video it just yet, but stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, from me and Bench, we'll see you in the next video.